welcome. The music's still going. The vibe is still here. Welcome to chapter 15. This one's going to be a little rough because I don't know this chapter that well. And I'm just going to kind of do what I did last time, read off the slides and try to then come back and explain it to a child. That's what we did last time. It's working. I remember everything. I'm doing great. I have this all down. Put the test in front of me over chapter 14. And I think I could get a solid B right now. Give me a day, I might forget some things, but I think it's working. So chapter 15 is the autonomic nervous system. And now let's go over what an autonomic is again. We're mostly going to get into the parasympathetic and the sympathetic division, but this is what you don't think about. You don't think about digesting food. You don't think about your heart beating. You don't think about your lungs breathing. This is all your not involuntary systems at work. Na 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 na. So the autonomic nervous system, or the ANS, keep that in mind, the abbreviation is ANS. You'll never hear me call it the ANS. Or maybe you will, and I'll do it to trick you up. It consists of motor neurons that, like I was talking about, it's your smooth muscle, your cardiac muscle, your glands. It makes adjustments to ensure optimal support for body activities. So it's very much involved in your homeostasis. That's a big thing. It operates via subconscious control. Again, you're not thinking about it. It's also called the involuntary nervous system or the general visceral motor system dual innervation. I low-key don't think Fonel will ever call it that. That's a lot of words. But if she does, visceral motor, your organs, we've been through this last chapter, organ motor, system dual innervation. There's there's parasympathetic, sympathetic. We've been through this. You know this. Just break it down. It's not that scary. All visceral organs are severed by both divisions. Both genuinely cause opposite effects. This is except in sex. By that I mean, I want to figure out how she exactly phrases this because that would be useful. Ejection and ejection is the only time it works together. Only time. So if you get a question that says, all the time the ANS, autonomic nervous system, works against each other, false. But generally cause opposite effects. Dynamic activisms between the two divisions maintain homeostasis. I can almost read minds, guys. Maintain balance, equilibrium with an internal environment. So just think about it. Homeostasis, that's what it is. So you have the CNS, and then you go into the peripheral nervous system that can be broken down into the sensory afferent, which is all we went over last time. We spent so long talking about sensory. But then we also did talk a little bit about motor. We did have that one or two, the chondrospinal one that we talked about for a little bit. But it was mostly over the sensory division. Let's be so for real here. And then you have the motor efferent division, which is the somatic nervous system, and the autonomic nervous system. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the autonomic nervous system and the sympathetic and the parasympathetic division. Just as a very quick refresher for you, sympathetic is your flight or flight, and your parasympathetic is your rest and digest. So the PNS, or the parasympathetic nervous system, again, rest or digest, and then you have the sympathetic nervous system, which is the SNS. Keep that in mind. Autonomic nervous system, ANS, parasympathetic, PNS, sympathetic nervous system, CNS. It's SNS. It promotes and maintains activities and conserves body. It's in the name. If you know the parasympathetic is rest and digest, conserves energy. Rest and digest, digestion, diuresis, defecation, everything your digestive system does. Sympathetic, fight or flight. Active during exercise, so you don't have to necessarily be thinking, oh my god, I'm getting chased by a bear. It can be when you're working out. It can be excitement, emergency, or embarrassment. So when I send this video, I'm gonna be pretty embarrassed. And my sympathetic nervous system is gonna be at work, if you know what I mean. Okay, functional organization of the somatic nervous system. Consciously perceived or controlled process. Oh, okay. It took me a second. Sorry. I was thinking of the sympathetic, and I'm like, I just read that that's flight or flight. No, when the somatic. Somatic is muscles again. We're back to that. We're back to the motor. Bah. Consciously perceived or controlled process. Somatic sensory portion detects signals from special senses. So, like I said, general senses of the touch. The special senses are your vision, hearing, equilibrium, smell, taste. Equilibrium feels like an odd word to put in there, so I do want to adjust that one real quick. It makes sense though, because your hearing and balance are very interconnected. We will be getting that in chapter 16, where the cochlea and the vestibular are all about that. That's all they're about, is hearing and balance. And then the somatic motor portion sends signals from the CNS to the skeletal. Again, it's somatic, it's motor. Everything we're talking about is descending in a way. Nothing's going towards the body. Voluntary movements involve cerebrum, so your brain. Reflexive motor movements involve brainstem and spinal cord. Keep in mind, reflexes are like that, like we covered last time. Quick, go, 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 go. There's not much thought. There's even some, like the patellar reflex, that it has a monosomatic on it. The sensory is right on top of the motor. The autonomic nervous system, also called the autonomic motor or visceral motor system. Process regulated below conscious level. So you're breathing, all that again. Transmits signals from the CNS to the heart, smooth muscles, or glands. Respond to visceral sensory inputs, like blood vessels. Functions to maintain homeostasis. You're going to hear that word a lot. This is what the main thing is, homeostasis. And the whole point of talking about this was just to kind of show you the difference between the autonomic and the somatic. We've been through this last chapter, though. We know this. This is just me repeating information at this point. I'm going to skip the song. It's ass. Well, it's not ass. It's a good song, but not the vibe we're going for. The ANS pathway uses two neuron chains, the preganglion neuron and the postganglion neuron, and the autonomic ganglion on outside CNS. Oh my god. This is going to be a rough one, a doozy to go through, because this is just going to be a lot of reading. It's not even like I don't know it, it's just everything here is pretty straightforward. The preganglion neuron in the CNS, it releases acetylcholine. Remember that. That's going to come in handy later on, because later on we're going to be talking about how the post and pre have different lengths depending on where they are, the sympathetic, parasympathetic, and it's going to be a mess. But it's going to make sense as we go through. And then you have the postganglion neuron and the autonomic ganglion outside the CNS. Just keep in mind, the sympathetic nervous system releases neuron epinephrine, and that one used to be called adrenaline. It's what goes through your body when you're scared. You say, oh my gosh, my adrenaline kicked in. This is just known epinephrine. Same thing. And then the parasympathetic nervous system releases acetylcholine. And remember how I told you the different links are going to come in handy? The preganglion neuron releases acetylcholine. The parasympathetic neuron releases acetylcholine. I'm noticing a little trend there. Cell bodies in the central nervous system. And then I'm not allowed to show pictures. That's like my challenge here, so I have to describe the pictures. But we do have a little picture here that is sympathetic, and everything's myelinated. to begin with, the very first part. Lightly myelinated preganglion axon. And then you have a non-myelinated postganglion axon, and that releases non-epinephrine. This is on the sympathetic, so keep that in mind. When non-epinephrine is sympathetic. And then we have then we have another drawing underneath it, and this is lightly myelinated preganglion axons. And one of the adrenal medulla here. And this is releasing epinephrine and non-epinephrine. Notice a little trend? And there's acetylcholine, but that's from the adrenal medulla, I think. I could be very wrong. We'll have to look into that. The parasympathetic. With that one comes a lightly myelinated preganglion axon, and then you have acetylcholine released from the parasympathetic and a non-myelinated postganglion axon. And this releases acetylcholine. And this is all smooth muscle. This is all not conscious stuff. We've been through this. So she just give a little review. Back to the muscles. It's a chemical synapse, presynaptic neurons, axons. So yeah, it's just talking about how the stuff moves again. It's going over presynaptic neuron, axon terminal releases neurotransmitter. I don't want to get too in depth. That's why I'm kind of scared to talk about it, because I know I will go in depth. Just look at the image. Remember how it works. Review. If you don't know this from the last exam, you're cut. So again, motors work on upper and lower neurons. It goes from upper to lower. It makes sense. It's descending away. Anything important in this picture that I have to explain? Yeah, no, I can't think of anything that I haven't already been through. So we'll come back to this. So also, she does have a question that says, which transmits information faster, the somatic or autonomic? I could be wrong about this, but I'm gonna go somatic, because you go to the one down below, it's a heavily myelinated axon. We know myelinated equals fast. We've been knowing this. So just think about that. I feel like I need to talk about this, but I don't see how I can talk about this. It's just, the image is just going over the preganglion cell body, the preganglion axon, the autonomic ganglion, acetylcholine. So that means this image is probably showing a parasympathetic division. Probably. It might not be. I'm just saying that to remind you of that acetylcholine is released by parasympathetic. And then you have the postganglion axon, and that releases acetylcholine or non-epinephrine. This video is a mess. Don't take anything I say, because I've apparently been wrong this entire time. Both of them, at the preganglion axon, will release acetylcholine. And then at the postganglion axon, that's how you can kind of determine if it's parasympathetic or sympathetic, if I'm understanding this picture correctly. I'm learning too. Everything I say, take with a grain of salt and correct me. It'd be funny. The CNS is control of... I got scared. Oh my god, it scared me. We need some better fingers going on. Give me a second. This will be a different kind of vibe, but I think will be a good vibe. The CNS controls the autonomic nervous system. The ANS is regulated by parts of the brain and spinal cord. It's the nervous system. What is our nervous system again? Anyway, you got the hypothalamus, which, as we know, is connected to the endocrine system. The pituitary gland, it kind of is the big homeostatic area of your brain. It kind of regulates a lot of things. Don't let that get damaged. It's crucial, contains nuclei controlling both ANS division, essential for emotional ANS processes such as flight or flight. Can be influenced by the cortex, thalamus, and limbic. Your limbic is your emotional. It's the reptile part of our brain. It's emotional. Thalamus, this is a filter again. It makes sense that these areas can affect the hypothalamus. But just know hypothalamus means fight or flight, a big homeostatic area in your brain. And then you have the brainstem nuclei, mediates visceral reflexes. It's your brainstem. Your brainstem, honestly, when you think of your brainstem, think about core functions. Think about breathing, heartbeat. It's all done in the brainstem. So it makes sense that it mediates visceral reflexes. It maintains blood pressure, spinal cord, governs some ANS reflexes. That should just make sense because we know breathing equals brainstem. Get our job, move out of school, start living like how we want to. Who cares what our friends would think? We don't need our parents. Sorry, it's a banger. The difference. So let's go over the key differences. So we already have the big difference. The parasympathetic is rest and digest. Sympathetic is fight or flight. And keep in mind, with the sympathetic, you don't need to actually be dying. Exercise can trigger this too. So what are the difference? The parasympathetic is craniosacral division, while the sympathetic is thoracic lumbar division. Let me make sure I'm right before I speak. Could start all it's over. Thoracic and lumbar. Okay, perfect. So I like to think of this as like a little sandwich. With the parasympathetic, you have the craniosacral, which when you think, okay, this one's a little dirty how I think about it. The parasympathetic, it thinks with its head and its penis. It thinks like a guy. The parasympathetic is a guy. Meanwhile, the sympathetic is the thoracic lumbar. You just need to break that down. I don't have a way to help you memorize it. It's your thoracic and your lumbar area of your spinal cord. And it's like a little sandwich. You got parasympathetic, sympathetic, parasympathetic. A little sandwich. The preganglion neurons in the brainstem, or S2 to S4. This one, if you can remember the craniosacral division, you can remember where these nerves are. For the sympathetic, the preganglion neurons and the lateral horns of T1 to L2. Again, you know what this is. You can get a good fighting chance on the test to get that right. Preganglion axons are long, postganglion. So this is what I was talking about earlier. For parasympathetic, preganglion axons are long. Postganglion axons are short. Again, the parasympathetic's a guy. They're gonna pregame. They're gonna drink a shit ton of alcohol before going to the party, and they're gonna pregame out of this shit. So they have a big postganglion axon that are long. Meanwhile, the sympathetic is smart. She's a little smarter. These are kind of, I don't want to compare them to women because that'd be confusing. But she's smart. She knows that afterwards she's gonna get a hangover, so she prepares afterwards. The sympathetic thinks ahead. It's the preganglion axons are short and the postganglion axons are long. Again, the parasympathetic guy, he's pre-gaming, he thinks with his head and his, ganglion are so for the parasympathetic, Ganglion are closer to or within the affected organ. And then preganglion axons have few branches. Again, this is a guy. You'd think he's gonna reach out to his fans, make sure they're doing okay. Unless they're right there with him, he won't know the difference. Meanwhile, the sympathetic ganglion are close to spinal cord, lateral or anterior to it. And the preganglion axons have many branches. She's gonna reach out to her fans, she's gonna know what's going on. But the reason why this is the way it is because, like I said, parasympathetic preganglion. That is a long branch, and then it's a postganglion that actually does like that shit. And those are in the organ, basically. Meanwhile, the preganglion, I said it backwards, my bad. The preganglion axons are long, yeah. And then the preganglion axons are short in the sympathetic, causing it to branch out a little bit more, and it has to be a bit closer because the postganglion are doing all the work. So, it just kind of makes sense when you know how it works. I didn't explain it well. I'll get to explaining it well. Don't worry your pretty little heads about it. Because the parasympathetic can be found within the organs, it's fairly localized. Like, you don't have to try to... If you are already there, why are you going to try to, like, leave and come back? You're there. It's fairly localized. The long preganglion axons with limited branches influence only one or a few effectors at the same time. Again, it's there. And it has limited branches. So, like, the guys, they only have, like, 2 to 3 friends. They really got to stick true to them. The sympathetic activity often facilitates mass activation. Sympathetic is your flight or fight. When you are fighting and flighting, just think about it. Everything's going. You're shaking, you're breathing rapidly, your heart rate increases. Everything is going. It's going to be mass. It's going all over the place real quickly. They have many branches, so that should just make sense. Exercise or fear we've been through this. Sympathetic stimulation of release of adrenaline, medulla hormones facilitate this. So it makes sense. It's adrenaline.